As we head into week 13 of the fantasy football season, which players are absolutely skyrocketing right now and ready to lead your team to glory? Let's find out. Hey, before I get to those players, let me remind you once again, if you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy, this is the perfect time, because speaking of skyrocketing, they're going to give all new customers this Dak Prescott special on Thursday night. He just needs to go higher than half a yard. I think he does that pretty easily. You take this line, you pair it with any other line or lines you like, and you could potentially 20x your entry. And when you use our promo code ENDGAME when you sign up at Underdog Fantasy, not only are you going to get access to this new customer special, but they're also going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Take the free money they give you, put it on the Dak Prescott line, pair it with any other line or lines you like, and potentially 20x it right away. Let's start at running back, and we have to start with Kyren Williams. Remember, before he got hurt a few weeks ago and went on IR, he torched the Arizona Cardinals defense. Came back in week 12 and torched the Arizona Cardinals defense even worse. Over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. I know people are already proclaiming this guy league winner. He's going to, be awesome the rest of the season. And yes, he may be, but we got to remember this was the Cardinals. Even Royce Freeman averaged 6 yards per carry on 13 carries. The Rams do get Cleveland and Baltimore in the next 2 games. Those are tough matchups. We'll see how he does, but if you had Kyren Williams and you held him throughout his IR stint, you've got to be feeling very good at the moment. And you've also got to be feeling fantastic if you held on to Bijan Robinson, finally looking like the guy we expected him to be. I shouldn't even say that. It's not like he's been bad this year. Bijan Robinson has been absolutely phenomenal, one of the best running backs in the league. He just hasn't gotten the opportunity, but that's changed the last 2 games. Over the last 2 games, he has 38 carries, 4 catches, 229 total yards, and 3 touchdowns. They are finally unleashing him, but really what you got to love here is they're giving him opportunities near the goal line. No, he wasn't a true workhorse in week 12, but he got all but 1 opportunity inside the red zone among the running backs. Arthur Smith finally trusting this guy, finally using him as the weapon that he is, and he has one of the best, if not the best, playoff schedules for running backs. He only really has one tough matchup the rest of the way. Bijan Robinson ready to smash and lead teams to glory. Is Tony Pollard also ready to smash and lead teams to glory? I'm not sure, but he has had 2 very nice games here. Of course, that was against Carolina and the Commanders. Not necessarily tough defenses by any stretch. But he does have to face the Eagles, the Dolphins, and the Lions in 3 of his last 4 games. Those aren't necessarily great spots. I'm not ready to buy all the way back in on Tony Pollard. Look, he's finally scoring touchdowns again. That's nice. But like I said, against very soft defenses. So while he's on fire right now, I'm not sure it's sustainable rest of the season. But I think it is sustainable for Ramondre Stevenson. It's been a tale of 2 halves for Ramondre. First half of the season looked like a total bust. Second half of the season, he's been great. He has 13 or more PPR points in 5 of the last 6 games, and he has 17 or more in 4 of those games. And he also has a fantastic rest of season playoff schedule. Not many matchups that should really worry you. And in this Patriots offense right now with the quarterback uncertainty, he basically is the entire offense. So Ramondre Stevenson started slow, but I think we're going to see a top 10 running back rest of the season. And while I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is necessarily going to be top 10 rest of the season, I think he can be a top 15 running back rest of the season. Coming off a nice game here where he had 89 total yards and 2 touchdowns. And he also has a fantastic remaining schedule. A bunch of great run defenses to go against. The downside here is in this offense, as we've seen, not necessarily an offense that's going to feature the running back. He's not always going to score 2 touchdowns. So while he has a very high weekly floor going forward, pretty much in every matchup for the rest of the season, he's not going to have a lot of big ceiling games like we saw in week 12. But still, if you got Pacheco rolling into your fantasy playoffs, you got to be feeling pretty good. You should also be feeling pretty good if you got James Cook rolling into your fantasy playoffs. He's been very up and down this year, but 2 straight games of 16 plus PPR points. But what I really like seeing from James Cook right now is his involvement in the passing game. This is what we were hoping for when we drafted James Cook as a late round running back. He has 9 catches over the last 2 games, and this is a team that's going to be playing hard, fighting to win. They are fighting for their playoff lives right now. He's in a great offense. I will say the downside for him is he has a very tough rest of season schedule, but if he can get that involvement in the passing game, that will at least give him a floor. I don't like him as much as Pacheco, or certainly not as much as Ramondre, but James Cook right now feels like a solid every week RB2 with upside. And then let's go a little deeper for our last running back. Do we have to start paying attention to Samaje Perine? This was a guy we liked as, a potential handcuff, early season kind of, help you out guy while Javonte came back from injury, and it just didn't really happen for him. But now it does seem to be happening. It looks like he is the number 2 running back now. Looks like he's jumped ahead of Jaleel McLaughlin in the last 2 weeks. And what I really like about Pyron's role in this offense is he's the 2-minute back. When they're playing from behind or at their end of the half where they're throwing a lot, he's the guy out there. He's catching passes. He's also scoring touchdowns. He's getting run. Sure, Javonte is still the one here, the clear lead back, but Pyron gets 2 fantastic matchups coming up. So if you're looking for kind of a deeper guy, a guy to help you maybe get you into the playoffs, maybe Pyron will be that guy. Let's go to wide receiver, and I keep talking about Devonta Smith without Dallas Goedert, and he's been fantastic so far. In the 2 games Dallas Goedert has missed, he leads the team with 16 targets, 13 receptions, 205 yards, and he's also scored a touchdown. We don't know when Dallas Goedert is going to be back. He didn't go on IR, so that's a good thing. Maybe it'll be this week. Maybe it'll be next week. But for however long Dallas Goedert is out, Devonta Smith is almost a must start, and he has a fantastic playoff schedule. The Eagles receivers have a great playoff schedule. So even with Goedert back, I expect Devonta Smith to have a great rest of the season. And will Calvin Ridley also have a great rest of the season? This is 2 good games in a row. Who knew he could do it? Look, maybe he's getting his legs back under him. Maybe he's getting back into game shape. I don't know, but he's looked good the last 2 weeks. But you know who else has looked really good the last 2 weeks? His quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Maybe we're seeing Trevor Lawrence start to come around, and that's going to help Calvin Ridley. But at this point, it's going to be hard to bench Calvin Ridley. He doesn't have a great schedule by any stretch, but the way he's playing, can you really bench him right now? Probably not. And you definitely should not be benching Michael Pittman. We get so many questions about Michael Pittman, but really, this guy should just be considered a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, like a no doubt lock him into your lineup type of guy. He's scored 14 or more PPR fantasy points in 6 straight games, and he's seen double-digit targets in 7 games this year. That is elite usage. Not many guys get this kind of usage. And it doesn't even really seem to matter the matchup. Whether it's a good matchup, a bad matchup, he gets the targets, he gets the receptions. Remember, this is a great wide receiver. Last year, I was all over Michael Pittman because he's such a talented guy. He just had horrible quarterback play. He finally has better quarterback play, better offensive coordinator, better offensive system. It's coming around for Michael Pittman. You got to view him as a wide receiver 1 rest of the season. And then we finally saw Jalen Waddle have a nice game in a sneaky spot. I know a lot of people were worried about him this week, but I was saying hey, this is actually a good spot for him. The way the Jets cover and with Sauce Gardner on Tyreek Hill, I think it'll be a good Jalen Waddle game. And it was. Now, it wasn't a huge game. I mean, he hasn't really had any huge games, and it's going to be hard to have huge games when Tyreek Hill is on the other side of you. But he had 8 catches for 114 yards, and now he gets Washington and Tennessee in the next 2 matchups. He should be great in both of those. Now, the downside here is the Dolphins have a brutal playoff schedule. Maybe we won't see the best Jalen Waddle in the fantasy playoffs, but if you're fighting for that last playoff spot, he's probably going to get you there. Now, is Christian Watson going to get you there? Is he back? I'm going to go with probably not. Sure, he looked good on that Thanksgiving game. Finally this season, finally did what we've been hoping for him to do. And I know people are going to say, well, he scored in back-to-back games. And you're right, but look at 2 weeks ago. He scored and did nothing else. That's my worry here. Is he going to just be the same old guy, kind of like a Gabe Davis? Every now and then he's going to pop off and people are going to think, okay, this is it. And then he's going to go back to doing nothing. Maybe. I'm kind of on the fence about this, but I will say on the plus side, Jordan Love looks really good. He's been playing great lately. This is a tough test this week against KC. If Christian Watson comes out of this with another big game, maybe I'll have to buy fully in again. But I am fully in on his teammate Jayden Reed. This is 3 straight games of at least 15 PPR points. He's actually a route technician. He was a polished wide receiver coming into the pros this year. Unlike Christian Watson, who's very athletically gifted, can do some certain things well, but also needs to work on other things. Jayden Reed was a polished wide receiver, a great route technician. He gets to play out of the slot. And like I said, with Jordan Love playing better, it's really helped this whole offense, including the receivers. I think Jayden Reed has a very strong finish to the season. He's actually the guy I would prefer between the two, looking like an every week wide receiver 3 flex type of start. And then finally, Rashee Rice has been one of the most frustrating players to try to figure out this year. Every time it looks like he takes a step forward, he takes 2 steps back. But this week, he took a big step forward after taking a big step back in week 11. He ran a route on 71% of his snaps, which is by far his career high. And he also had a 31% target share. Definitely his career high. Hopefully, Rashee Rice is finally getting the confidence of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, because we know if he does and he can continue to do this in this offense, he truly could be a league winner down the stretch. I'm definitely nervous here because, again, we've seen him have these games where it looks like he's starting to get more into the offense, and then the next week he's kind of phased out again. We'll see what he does this week against the Packers, but if this usage continues rest of the season, he's ready to smash. All right, let's move on to quarterback, and I already mentioned Dak Prescott, take that higher line, but I've been talking about Dak Prescott since week 6, since before the bye. I said, look, Dak Prescott is a no doubt top 5 quarterback rest of the season, and nobody listened to me because, hey, it's Dak Prescott, he chokes, he can't play in the big games. Who cares? This is fantasy football. Hey, if you're a Cowboys fan, yeah, I feel for you with Dak Prescott. I play fantasy football. I'm not a Cowboys fan. Just give me my fantasy points. And Dak Prescott, he's been giving me my fantasy points. In fact, you go back to week 6, Dak Prescott is the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy football over that stretch. And he had a bye week during that stretch. He's been phenomenal. And he gets nothing but good matchups. There is not a single matchup, a single defense that should terrify you for Dak Prescott rest of the season. Dak Prescott going to continue to smash. If you got him, you should be feeling fantastic. And maybe you should start feeling fantastic about Trevor Lawrence as well. Are we finally seeing this third-year leap? Maybe. 2 very good games. And what I really liked is that he followed up that good game against Tennessee at home a couple weeks ago with a great game this week on the road against Houston. Houston had been his kryptonite. He had struggled against Houston. Going into Houston, winning that game, 346 yards, a touchdown, a rushing touchdown. You got to feel pretty good at this point. Now, I will say that Jaguars have a tough remaining schedule. I talked about that with Calvin Ridley. So I can't feel great about him. I'm not going to say he's like a top 10, top 5 QB rest of the season. But I think he's a guy, if you got him in a 1 QB league, you got to feel pretty good about him. And maybe, just maybe, you could feel good about Jordan Love. Talked about him as well. 3 straight games with at least 18 fantasy points, over 20 fantasy points in the last 2 games. But like I said when I was talking about Christian Watson, this is the test. At home against KC. Can he deliver against a tough defense like the Chiefs? If he does, that's it. We're in. You can start him rest of the season. If not, we probably have to go kind of matchup based again. We'll see how it goes this week. But right now, Jordan Love is playing great. Looks fantastic after a good start to the season. And then looking like he shouldn't be in the NFL for the middle part of the season. He's back to looking very good again. Let's hope it continues the rest of the way. And then finally, tight end, the most surprising performance of the week had to be Pat Freiermuth. 9 catches, 120 yards on 11 targets in this Steelers offense. Look, I know they were better without Matt Canada. They went over 400 yards for the first time in like 50 games or something like that. But who expected Pat Freiermuth to be the leading receiver and just dominate like this? Not me. If you did, hey, hats off to you. It was a great matchup against the Bengals, but even still, I think you got to feel pretty good about Pat Freiermuth going forward. He feels like a set and forget tight end rest of the way. And even though Trey McBride didn't smash in week 12, you still have to feel great about him. 9 targets, 7 catches, 60 yards. He looks awesome. He's so involved in this offense. That's about as good as you could ask for at the tight end position. And he only really has one tough matchup the rest of the season. Unfortunately, it's week 15, your fantasy playoffs against San Francisco. But if you can survive that, he has 2 great matchups to finish the season. Trey McBride looking like at least a top 6 or 7 tight end, maybe even top 5 rest of the season. Now, I keep talking about David Njoku, but I'm going to continue to talk about David Njoku. Now, he didn't smash in a great spot this week against Denver, but he kind of sort of dropped the touchdown. I guess you could say the defender maybe knocked it out of his hands, and he dropped another pass that would have gone for a big gain. But he's getting incredible usage. He's now had 8 or more targets in 5 of the last 6 games. Amari Cooper is banged up. The quarterbacks are banged up. We don't know who's going to start here, but I don't think it matters. David Njoku is so involved in this offense, getting so many targets. And as I've said many times now, for weeks now, when I kept begging you to go trade for David Njoku, he has by far the juiciest playoff schedule of any tight end. One of the juiciest playoff schedules in all of fantasy football. No, maybe David Njoku doesn't have insane upside, but it's a tight end position. This guy's going to get you double-digit PPR points without a touchdown every week. That's fantastic for a tight end. You know what else is fantastic? Winning your fantasy football matchups, and we got you covered with everything you need to do that in Week 13. Check out our playlist right here.